Hi, welcome to Entrepreneurship in VET Practices, a project called ENTREPVET, co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. This is a Challenges and Opportunities workshop. I'm Graham Nichols and I'm the Director of Make Dream Publishing Limited, one of the partners in the project ENTREPVET. We're going to be looking in this workshop anyway about social economy and how to create a social enterprise or any sort of project. Social economy is going to be considered to have three factors or three sectors. The business private sector, which is privately owned, profit motivated. Public sector, which is owned by the state on behalf of the people of the state. And the social economy that embraces a wide range of community, voluntary and not-for-profit activities. More commonly NGOs, non-government organizations. So what are six stages in social innovation? How are we going to create new projects, new social enterprises? What are the key stages? There are six. These are prompts, proposals, prototypes, sustaining, scaling and diffusion, and systemic change. In this workshop, we'll go through each one in a little bit more detail. And in the registration page, you have already seen there were links to some of the resources you can use to actually deliver this workshop yourself. Feel free to download them, edit them, or change them however you want in order to deliver the workshop. These stages, they're not always sequential. You can think of them as overlapping with distinct cultures and skills. They're more or less a framework. So these stages I'm going to present are really a framework that you can put together and use to develop any sort of project or social enterprise. So prompts, what are they? It's diagnosing the challenge. Okay, framing the question so you tackle the root cause and go beyond the symptoms, because our first response normally is to try and create something to alleviate or satisfy the symptoms. But if you go and frame a question to see what is underpinning the symptoms, you will actually diagnose the challenge. Very important to ask the right questions to get the reasons why this is happening. So tackle the real reasons. Overcome some false barriers. You may be coming across ideas that say, I can't really do this, this is impossible. How are we going to do it? I don't know where to go. And so you give up at the first stage. These are what we call a false barrier. These are the ways we try to convince ourselves that we cannot do something. One of the first steps you can do is actually map and identify the gaps. So have a look around. If you see there's something, there's a challenge out there you want to address, have a look and see what else is out there. Who else is doing something? Is their target group the same one that you want to work with? So try and find a gap in the service provision. So mapping and gap identification, these are the early parts of actually working with prompts. There are many challenges that prompt innovation, that demand action on an issue, or that mobilize belief that a course of action is possible. So once you get some ideas, people will throw questions at you. They may even come to you and say, I would like to do this. How can I do it? So this is a prompt. So communities researching themselves to identify their own needs and solutions to those needs. It's based on the premise that people are the best placed to identify their own needs. Networking, communication, these are really important through all the stages of creating a project or creating a social enterprise. But more importantly, they are really essential if you're looking at prompts and finding out what other people know about the challenge, about the issues, and to get communities themselves to identify what they are, rather than say, we think it is this. Say, what do you think your needs are? So it's like a training needs analysis. So always listen to the people you're trying to serve. Stage 2, proposals. So you have the prompts, you have the challenge or the issue, and now you want to find proposals and solutions. These often include user-led design, because you've been talking to the people involved. It could be redesigning existing services, and always willing to use engagement of ex-users, engagement of people with lived experience, so they know firsthand what the needs are and how you think you might be able to find a solution. They may even come up with solutions themselves. Exchange and mobility visits. Every time you have a meeting, these are a powerful tool for promoting ideas, giving confidence for calls to action, and common for transfer of knowledge and ideas. So any sort of mobility visit, if you're working in Europe on European projects, set aside some time anyway, just to see what else can we do. We have this project we're working on. Is there something else that we can do to improve it? Is there another project we can create that actually underpins and supports and complements what we're already doing? So exchange visits, if you go to meet another organization and they come and see yours, this gives transfer of knowledge and ideas. Don't be afraid to exchange ideas, to share knowledge and how to do so. Because networking is something the social economy sector does well, or it needs to if it's going to survive in the 21st century. Networking and communication really essential. Stage 3, pilots. So we've had the prompts, you've had the proposals, now we want to put it into practice. So how are we going to do that? A feasibility study is always recommended. A delivery model, how are you going to actually put the pilot into practice? How are you going to deliver everything? It's going to be online, offline. What resources you're going to be needing? What challenges are you likely to face? And how about getting finance? Where you get the money to run it? So these are really important things to consider when you want to create a pilot project. The driving forces obviously will be speed. How quickly can you get it up and running? And also, how long are you going to run it for to get the evaluation to see if you can sustain it and actually upscale or you make it mainstream? So the driving forces are speed, keeping the costs low, obviously, because it's a pilot project. It's only going to run for a certain length of time. So use whatever resources you have available. See if you can have resources donated into the pilot project. Tangibility, how is it going to feel? What will success look like? So be sure you have an idea in mind or a goal in mind that where you want to be once the pilot project is finished. In the evaluation, get the feedback from all the participants every step of the way and do it continuously, not when you've finished the pilot project. This has to be done continuously so you can evaluate as you go, you can change and adapt as you go. Funding, really, really important. Where are you going to get the money from to set up the pilot project? Could it be donations from trusts? Could it be EU grant funding? Direct commissioning and tendering. If you're in touch with your local authority, quite often they have a budget set aside for testing with pilot projects to address issues that are local. So direct commissioning and tendering, watch out for any sort of tender invitations for funding locally. and always good when you're looking at the stakeholders, when you're assessing the prompts and proposals. Get your commissioners, your local commissioners, decision makers on board so they can give you advice to say what it is they are really looking for and what they have a budget already set aside to provide. Sustaining. Okay, you've run the pilot project. Now, what are you going to do when it's finished? When you're creating your business plan, your feasibility study, you would need to consider the sustainability. How will you generate income to cover the costs after the initial pilot? Will you look to get money from a public or private body to pay for what is on offer? Will you just go to the public and get donations like crowdfunding? Mainstreaming, getting your commissioners on board early on. Really important to get your local authorities and decision makers involved with what you're doing to see how it relates to local priorities, because you're more likely then to have it mainstreamed and get access to funding to make it the project continue after the initial funding is finished. Scaling and diffusion. Bill Clinton said nearly every challenge has been overcome by someone somewhere. The challenge in the 21st century is to find out what works and scale it up. So upscaling is very easy concept to grasp. If you're doing something somewhere, then how can you upscale it? How can you do more of the same? It could be in a different locality near where you live, or it could be across your region, or even nationally and internationally. So diffusion. It's known that the social economy or the social NGOs, voluntary community sector, primarily oriented around social missions. And they favour rapid diffusion. They can share the innovation. Unlike private enterprises, the social economy does not try to keep it private. There's a lot of interaction and modification, working with partnerships, sharing the knowledge, and allowing others to actually use what you're already doing and changing it to suit their target audience and their local need. So this is diffusion. It's adaptation and change while still retaining the core elements of the project, the enterprise. Systemic change. These are innovations that radically change fundamental systems on which we depend. These primary systems: healthcare, housing, learning and training. You'll find that proposals, solutions will very often address one of these underpinning pillars: healthcare, housing, learning and training. So how can you change or improve the systems within these areas? This could be one of the challenges that one of the prompts is actually asked you to address. I'll give you an example of that. When I was in a meeting in Europe, somebody came to me from Sweden and said, how can we set up a doing house? This guy was a refugee who relocated to Sweden. He had skills he wanted to use, but he had no opportunity to actually implement them. So he's like, how can I sort out somewhere where people like me, we can put our skills together and actually have one area where we can actually, use our skills, a doing house. So rather than look at how we can get property or anything else, we decided to look at what is it that underpins the question anyway. That was to look at what would they need by way of training to make this happen. And so with 5 partners from Europe, we created community champion training program, which was accredited in all partner countries, but it was all about community development and training people to be able to do things for themselves. So rather than set everything up for them, we say, this is how you can set it up yourself. So it means we didn't have to be there all the time. They could actually take over the running of whatever they created. So systemic change is changing the way that people do things. Systemic innovation is different from innovation in products and services. It involves change in mindsets as well as to economic flows, and it's a multi-sector approach. Keep saying about networking and getting stakeholders on board from all the different sectors. So when you have the training, for example, accredited, that could be on a national database, and other organizations in your country can actually access it, implement the training in their daily curriculum. All the partners, all the people working on the project, on the social enterprise, they are more likely to change the way they do things as well, and this is systemic change. So it's changing the way people think, changing mindsets. So innovation is seeing what everybody else has seen, but thinking about it differently. Always remember Branson, when he was setting up his companies, he was looking at what people were doing, saying, how can I make that better? How can I improve on what they're already doing? And he has been quite successful, I think you'll agree. So you visualize the goal, focus on it, and the detail will follow. Earlier I said that knowing how you want success to look like, focus on that, and then the detail will actually follow. You will learn what it is you need to do to achieve the goal. So summarize again. Social economy prompts. This is identifying needs. Proposals. Finding the answers. Prototypes. Creating pilot projects. Sustaining. Make sure you have a business plan so you know how you're going to continue with the project after the initial funding, the seed funding is finished. You need to know how you're going to continue with it. If it's a training example, a training program, for example, then you know that you're going to be putting that into your daily curriculum, into the business curriculum, the training curriculum, and advertising that locally, nationally, or regionally. Scaling and diffusion. This is interaction and modification. Scaling, upscaling is doing the same thing somewhere else. So you improve the reach, the number of people you can reach with your training, for example. Diffusion, changing the way that people think. It's interaction, modification, improving the training that's out there, for example. Systemic change, changing mindsets, new training ideas. So this is not so much about products, but it's more about ideas and services. What can you offer to other people that'll actually provide a solution to the local community challenges? So thank you for listening. My name is Graham Nichols. I'm from Make a Dream Publishing Limited. The website you can see here is www.ENTREPVET.com. My website, or the Make a Dream Publishing website, is there, plus my email address. If you have any questions about this project, please email me and I'd be more than happy to reply. Okay, don't forget you can download some of the resources from the registration page. Okay, thank you again.